I'm Jason Cook. With over 20 years of experience as a professional trainer, coach, and clinician in the equine industry, I've had the privilege of dedicating thousands of hours to perfecting my craft. Now I'm excited to share my expertise with you through this podcast. We will explore some of my past experiences as well as those of other individuals to provide you with a wealth of knowledge and insights to enhance your journey. Whether you are a novice or an experienced horseman, this podcast will offer valuable perspectives to help you achieve success. So today I have Clay Brown. It's been a good friend of mine for a while. We met back in, 1999?
I believe so.
Yeah. It might have been the summer of 2000. It might have been 99 or the summer of 2000, somewhere around in there. And Clay has his training operation here. And what do you actually call it here?
C&M Performance Horses.
C&M Performance Horses. They train a lot of calf horses, and they team rope also. And Clay has roped for years. He took a little hiatus at one point in time, but has been back at it, as you're going to hear. He's been back at it for a while now. But anyway, so where did it start for you? And you played sports in high school.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yes.
You grew up doing that. When did you start roping and all that stuff and riding horses?
I believe I was in third grade. My parents bought another place, and we moved to it and had room for horses. And golly, so third grade to fifth grade, no arena, but man, I just somewhere around third grade just took an itch for it.
Uh-huh.
And hours and hours and hours of just roping the dummy. My dad rodeoed some before I was born, a little bit as I was little bitty. Don't even remember it. I remember him having horses. Grew up riding a horse around. Actually broke my first limb. Wasn't even in school yet. Mom would saddle a horse, and I'd go out there and ride it in an 8-acre pasture all day. Fell asleep on the horse, fall off, break my arm. So it started very young, but when they bought this new place, I don't know. My grandma was one of the founders of the ACRA, so
I didn't know that.
So we always went to rodeos. She was a secretary, and man, truth be told, like every little kid, I wanted to be a bull rider. First, second grade, had me a buck and barrel. Man, me and my cousins just wore that thing out. And, Larry Brown, my dad, rough stock was not an option. It just wasn't.
I was going to ask you what events he did when he...
Yes, he roped calves and team roped.
Okay. All right.
And I believe he rode bulls right out of high school, and if I remember the story right, they were at a bull riding. The guy he went there with, or one of his good friends, got bucked off, stepped on, and killed him right there. And Dad was very, very plain, blunt about it in junior rodeos, everything growing up. Man, I was getting beaten the all around.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't do any rough stock. We can dig into that a little bit later, but you rope better, you can win the all-around.
Yeah.
Don't have to ride rough stock. And nothing against it. Got great friends that do. But,
right.
But
yeah, I'm out too.
Yeah, you put the work in it. Me too. Good grief.
There's one way off.
Yes.
A bull.
And it's down.
Yeah, it's down.
Yes. And then so we moved to that place. I start roping. Spend hours and hours on the dummy. Really started head and steers first. Didn't take up the calf roping full time really till later in high school. Everybody around here roped steers. There was no USTRC. There was no number classifications. You went to Neosho or Cecil White's, or man, if you really wanted to venture off, you went to Berryville. And then I guess I was probably in junior high, maybe the start of high school, the number system came along. And I can remember being high callback. I don't think I was 16 yet. I was high callback 2 years in a row with the same guy at the Super Bowl in Guthrie. Man, I want to say then it paid $50,000 a man. You know, we're talking mid-90s.
Yes.
$50,000 a man.
Yes.
Holy cow. Spun 2 steers 1 year and the next year. Spun 2 steers for money, and the same guy missed both of them for $50,000 a man, high callback. That's when calf roping went, man, this can be on me. Mm-hmm. And not that I was, trust me, I've missed plenty of steers for good money or broke the barrier, but I had that avenue. Played sports, was blessed to be athletic enough that the calf roping, man, it just took off. I didn't have an arena growing up. A lot of people, I see it today giving lessons and stuff that, man, all we do is back in there and rope.
Right.
And I attribute being able to help people and my rope and looking back on it now because I was more fundamentally sound. Mm-hmm. Just basics. Just there's a 120-acre field over here that, man, I'd ride 6 or 7 horses a day around it. Long trot, low, up swinging my rope. Watch videos. You know, we didn't have them on our phone.
Right. I had VHS.
VHS, yes. Yeah. Hit rewind, wear tapes out, watching them. How Roy Cooper, when he would deliver his rope, both hands would come together. Why Cody Ohl would do this. I didn't know why they did it, but those guys were successful, so that's what I tried to do. Mm-hmm. And got where when I got on a horse in a live situation, and I'm not going to say I wasn't some phenom, but I could go get by about anywhere I wanted to go.
Right.
I did have great help. My parents helped me. You know, local guys around here helped me. Greg Ash, Chip Porterfield, you know, stopped by and roped the dummy with me. Chip, I met him. Man, he hauled me all over. Good guy. And now we're getting to the point where I met this guy. I believe he was riding a yellow horse at Mom and Dad's.
Yeah. This would have been in 2000, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
In 2000. And he's in tennis shoes. And, man, he's barely got the tips of his toes in the stirrups.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, what in the world we got going on here? and man, met you. We became pretty good friends then, you know, just acquaintances really, I'd say.
Right.
And then I take off and go rodeo.
Yeah, and what did that entail, and where'd you go, and kind of get into that?
I first, Roy Cooper was an amazing man to me. I told somebody the other day, he took a nobody kid from Missouri in high school, met him, went to one of his roping schools, and wanted me there at his place every waking moment I could. Mm-hmm. If it was spring break, if it was he was home at a certain part of the summer, Thanksgiving, you know, whenever. And so when it come time for me to buy my PRCA card, I was very fortunate, moved to Childress, Texas, rodeo with him. It's kind of neat. I can say I was the last one to rodeo with Roy Cooper, and Roy Cooper at the time was the Michael Jordan of calf roping. Mm-hmm. You know, the best there ever was. And then in that, I got to meet Trevor Brazil, and Roy was kind of wanting to slow down that year. And so Trevor said, man, move over here. I know Roy doesn't practice that much anymore. He said, man, I rope every day. He said, my dad won't put up lights, but every morning, every evening we'll rope. And so him and I started rodeoing together. I had some success that year. Came home. That would have been the summer of 2000. my grandma passed away, and I was riding a colt at Mom and Dad's, and man, just run up there, rope a calf. Colt really gets in it, kind of jumps out of it, and locks it off then. And it cracked my growth plate in my right leg, where my groin ties in. It pulled a chunk of bone off with it. Mm-hmm. And, 19 years old, this doesn't hurt that bad. A month later, black and blue from my belly button, my knees, and couldn't hardly walk. And they said, 6 months to a year, do not get on a horse. You're spread out too much, too hard on the insides of your legs. And of course, then met my wife, went on a first vacation, had never been on vacation. Mm-hmm. And we ended up getting married in 2002. Mindy was from town, never been around horses, anything like that. Ended up taking 10 years off. Didn't touch a rope or a horse.
I knew it was a while. I didn't know how long.
Yeah. And truth be told, Sherman Brown, a guy I'd rodeoed with when I was amateur rodeoing around here, entered me at a Missouri family rodeo at Republic, and went there, thought, man, I ain't touched a rope. I dug all my old grass ropes out. I was wearing jeans from the Buckle at the mall. Found an old cowboy hat. Showed up, blow the barrier out. Man, 3 swings. I rope him right around the eyes, and I'm standing in the stirrup. And I wipe smooth out. And boy, from then on, I've been the last 13, 14 years now, I guess, trying to prove I could do it. And then, man, I don't know. I ran into you somewhere because I was kind of just bumming rides and couldn't afford a horse. Man, right. Couldn't afford a truck, a trailer, anything like that. I'd sold everything, and
I'd been gone. I'd been in Arizona.
Yes,
and I had started training horses because we had met in 2000, and I just basically quit my job in the aerospace and moved out there.
Yes.
And so you had last seen me probably on a horse. It was probably at your parents' house.
Yes.
And I had just bought that yellow mare that was supposed to be a head horse, but I didn't know anything about it. But I didn't know head horses need to weigh more than 850.
Yes. Yes, especially because the steers then, some of them weighed at a practice night. They'd weigh close to 850.
They were big. Yes. And I was just, I had met an acquaintance of ours, Jimmy, and I was going to learn to team rope. Mm-hmm. And I couldn't ride a stick horse. It was bad. It was really bad. But we bought that filly, or that mare, and not long after that ride, that day, I quit my job and moved to Arizona because everybody told me the only way to get better is to do it more than them, and I'd never catch up. And so I just quit and went out there. Of course, got married too. Mm-hmm. There was a woman involved. But and then that takes us to our next interaction. I think I ran into you at a restaurant in Wheaton.
Yes.
Across from the gas station there. Mm-hmm. I think I ran into you that time, and
I think you had mentioned something about the Whitleys that you were working for, that their son was roping. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we had ran into each other because I remember telling Mindy when we left. This was before I started roping. Mm-hmm. You said you had asked me about coming over and helping the son with his calf roping. Mm-hmm. And Mindy asked me, why? Oh, and sorry, Mindy, we got married in 2002. Mm-hmm. This was probably 2006.
It would have been 2006. Yes.
And Mindy asked me on the way home, she's like, so are you going to go down there? And, you have helped me more to date, horsemanship, in life, in getting in shape, so many aspects of my life. But I'm going to be honest with you. When Mindy asked me, hey, are you going to go down there and help that boy rope? Mm-hmm. the last roping I had done, I was roping with the best in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mean it bad, but I looked at you and went, the last time I seen him, he's on this little yellow mare.
Riding with his toes pointed down.
I'm sure not going to start roping again to go down there. You know what I mean? And I hate it that it was looked at that way.
Well, but that's very normal. There's nothing abnormal about that, and that's very humanistic. I mean, that's what we're going to do.
Yes, yes. And man, it's crazy. And I didn't follow up with that. And it took running into that guy that I'd rodeoed with that just out of the blue entered me and called and said, hey, be here at Republic Saturday night. Mm-hmm. And man, I very, very blessed that he did now. Mm-hmm. But so run into you doing that. And
you were starting a few colts too.
Well, when I started roping, everything, my mind knew what to do, but my body, everything felt so foreign.
Yeah, it's recalculating.
I mean, it was, it took a scientific calculator to recalculate it. And it used every ounce of memory it had. Yeah. But so I think I called you. I'm like, man, I need to make some money. I'm back to roping. Mm-hmm. What do you think? And I had heard, like a lot of people, mutual friends, a lot of people have told me, man, that Jason Cook's got it going on. Mm-hmm. Been sending horses to you. And so I called you and said, man, can you help me get some horses? I would like to have 6 to 8, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, whatever. I need to make some money. Plus, I feel like I need to spend time in the saddle. Mm-hmm. And truth be told, that's what I did. I did it for a year and a half, 2 years. Mm-hmm. And it was work. My hat's off to you. Patience. I wasn't at the age to understand the patience to start a horse.
Right.
I had never started a horse. You know, my dad would buy young horses, and we'd send them off somewhere and have somebody start them. Mm-hmm. You know, a cutter or somebody with a cutting background. And you know, at the time I thought cutters were the most broke thing there was.
Right.
Because rope horses then, they weren't that broke. And especially to survive the stuff that I did with them.
Yes.
And not blow up. And it was a whole nother world. You know, so then I believe you called me and said, hey, my boss's son is going to pharmacy school. He's got these 2 horses, and man, what a blessing you called, because Musket, you know, and Blake Whitley, I didn't have the money. Mm-hmm. I don't remember what he wanted for him. You may remember.
I don't remember for sure. I sure don't.
Musket, you told me, hey, he gets a little wound up in the box, kind of wants to do this. I learned more from that horse. I owe that horse for what he taught me. Mm-hmm. For one, Blake let me take him for a month and try him, get him legged up and try him. And then Blake let me make payments to him on him. Mm-hmm. And I can remember after 2 weeks, 2 weeks, I've never rode anything like this animal.
Yeah.
Like, I had rode I'd rode Topper, Roy Cooper's good horse. I had rode all of Trevor's. I had never rode a reiner. Uh-huh. I can remember taking him to Roy Creed's up there at Verona, running a calf, and feeling this horse switch leads every 2 strides. Uh-huh. Left lead, 1, 2, right lead, 1, 2, left lead. And after 2 weeks, I was so, let's just put it this way, I was as blown up as he was. And I remember loading him up, coming down there and saying, okay, Jason, I need to know where every single button on this horse is. There's no way I can remember it all, but I can remember what I need to stay away from.
Yes.
And you put, I don't know, something without I can remember it plain as day, something without a breast collar and some kind of boots on him and some kind of split reins, and you went to town. And I can remember in the first 10 minutes going, I can't do that. How is he getting that horse? How's he getting his body? You're going a circle to the right, and his nose and his butt are almost touching to the left.
Uh-huh.
And you're in the left lead, and you're purposely doing it. And then you take everything off, and he switches to the right lead, and you go to the left. And then you don't even pull on the bridle reins, and this sucker swallows his butt and starts backing up. And I'm thinking, how in the world? No wonder I can't rope on him. No wonder he's so, now we call it confused.
Yes. Yes.
And I see it every day.
Yeah.
I do it still to this day. I have to slow down because I look back thinking about riding that horse and how confused I must have made that horse. And I learned so much from him because you know as well as I do, a switch could flip. And, buddy, he was more horse than a lot of people.
And you don't spank him.
Do not spank him. No, don't get mad. Don't lose your temper. Don't jerk, because one thing I noticed with him, if you lost your temper and you did something, you were lucky if he didn't do that for 2 weeks.
Uh-huh. Yeah, he was very fractious when it came to that.
Yes, but very fractious.
Very impressionable.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And man, I'm telling you, Mindy and I loved that horse.
Yeah.
Loved him. Like, he was everything. And that horse truly stepped my game up as far as understanding about horses. And I've got to give it to you. I would not have learned anything from that horse had I not been willing to go, okay, Jason, I don't know what I'm doing here.
Yeah.
And in that to me, that horse is where my side of the horsemanship came on, because I've told hundreds of people, you know, Jason and Trin or Jason and Brent would load up and come to the house while we were roping. And it didn't matter if we were roping the sled, pin roping, whatever. Jason will watch us rope or watch me rope. And it didn't matter if I tied everyone in 7 or in 57. You would come up to me and say, hey, you want to know why your horse is doing this? And I'm like, yes, I've been spending 2 weeks trying to figure it out. And it was as simple as falling back in my throw. It goes back to the stuff I watched Roy Cooper and Cody Old do. I'm not 100% certain that they knew why, because technology wasn't what it is. That we can say, hey, right there, you fell back as you delivered. That cued your horse to stop. That makes the calf go away from you, so your loop hits him in the back of the head, or it shoots. You know, it throws stuff off. And man, when I started understanding, not near to your level, but what made a horse work, like as far as let's hit cues instead of scare them into it.
Right.
Let's explain it to them where they understand and they want to do it, instead of just scare it into them. Scaring it into them only works so long. You know, it's funny we're talking about this because we just put some horses on a log the other day, and we spent, golly, I don't know, we spent a week longer preparing the horse to go on a log. And I never thought.
And the log, for the audience, is you're preparing this horse as a process of how to work a rope and hold the rope tight while you tie your calves.
Yes. Yeah. And for the longest time, and there's been a lot of horses that I feel like I've messed up on now looking back at it. For for the longest time, we were dealing with these pretty good horses. And we used a little bit of that fear that they had of the log to make them go backwards. Mm-hmm. Because, in my opinion, a horse looks at that log, they don't know if that's a log or an alligator.
Right.
And in that, eventually, as intelligent as horses are, 2 years down the road, they may eventually go, that's not an alligator. I don't need to go backwards. So now we teach them, hey, this is not an alligator. This is a log. We can be 5 foot from it. We can drag it backwards and not skin out, not be scared to death. And holy cow, now our horses want to back up. Then we go in the process of teaching them how to back up off of a live rope or off of weight or, and it's, I know now that they're going to work.
Yeah.
Barring a bomb doesn't go off.
Right.
Or
they're actually processing it and acting instead of reacting.
Yes. And processing was as much for the horse that you've taught me. It was more for me.
Right.
Because if the horse is processing it, that means I've had to break it down to where they can process it.
Very simple.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So you had Musket there, and I don't know how long you had him before. I remember you came to me that day and you said, you keep talking about the other horse, and you aren't coming out and saying it, but you kind of make me feel like I bought the wrong horse.
Yes.
And I said, no, you bought the horse that you told me you want to go do something now. Mm-hmm. And I said, if you want to do it now versus later, Musket's your deal. But I said, this other horse has tons of talent and ability and can run like the wind blows.
Yes.
And I said, whatever you do, I said, like if I track cattle on him, and I had been heeling on him, but I had started him in calves.
Yes.
But I kicked him bare-heeled, and if you kick him bare-heeled, you better be ready to rope quick. Because he could I had kind of taught him to go hunt a cow down versus driving him to a cow. Mm-hmm. And so he took that really seriously. But I remember you came to me, and then we went to Roy's.
Yes.
And
I know where this is going.
Go ahead.
So I come to you. At this point, we had been winning on Musket.
Yes.
We had spent a lot of time, and I'm not going to say that Musket was the best he could have been, but we got Musket where we could win on him.
Yes.
And man, it was just time. It was time to buy another horse. That's what everybody thinks. And
yes.
And it was time. So you bring Pickett, the bay, to Roy Creed's.
Yeah, and he's how old then, you think?
Well, we bought Musket. They were the same age. We bought Musket when he was 9. So I believe it was just a year or two later. So he was either 10 or 11.
And I had started him on calves, maybe tied down 50 or 60 on him when he was 4 or 5, mm-hmm. right around there.
Yes.
I think 4. And then Blake wanted me to make it a heel horse for his son, and so I switched it over to heeling. And then I heeled on him, and I went to some U.S. Ropens, and then they ended up taking him on. So he hadn't had a calf. He hadn't been out of the calf or chasing a calf from that side in several years, because he would have been 4 years old when he last did that.
Yes, and we, at that time, sleds were just coming on.
They were.
Now nobody comes here without roping the sled. Mm-mm. I don't care if you're trying to make the NFR, if you're an NFR qualifier, we start out on the sled.
Yes.
If you can hear it in the background, the boys are over there now, wearing it out.
I'm watching them right now. They are dragging the dummy as we speak.
We're on our second four-wheeler. Our other four-wheeler never got more than 400 yards from the house. Uh-huh. We started with 500 miles on it, and when we retired it, or it retired itself, it had 6,000 miles at 300 foot at a time. Yeah. And so therefore, anybody listening, you think you roped the dummy a lot.
Yeah.
6,000 miles on the first four-wheeler.
Yeah. What is it, 2,000 across the United States or something?
Probably.
Something like that. It gets Yeah, it's probably over 2,000.
Yes, yes. And 6,000 miles, a whole lot of rebuilding the sled because sand does wear metal out.
Yeah, we wore ours out, and you wouldn't think so, but it wore the skis off of it.
Yes. Well, this sled that we're on right now, I bet it's had 5 sets, and now we go over here to the ARC shop, and Raymond and the boys put thick.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be in 4-wheel drive to pull it for a little bit. But so
we go to Roy's.
Yeah, we go to Roy's.
I met you up there.
Yes. And I get on this horse, and, man, I lope him around, and he's like head down.
You got on him.
I'm thinking, is this a Western pleasure horse?
Well, your first 20 foot, you grab the horn, you look back at me and said, Jason, this horse, I think it's getting ready to buck. I said, well, what's going on? Did it do something? And you said, well, its head's way down. And you're used to that because in your world, if their head's down, something's wrong.
Yeah, but this is the first horse I've ever rode that is asking me where to put his feet.
Yes.
And that was a whole nother ball game.
Because even Musket was more forward.
Yeah.
He was more.
Musket was a pull horse. He wasn't a push horse.
Yes.
And I'm thinking, man,
Jason says he can run.
Yeah, he can run. This donkey won't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of funny stories with other people that I let ride that horse later on, but I can remember I warm him up, ride him. Man, we get to doing it, and we back in the box, and he's just standing there. Yeah. Like his resting heart rate is a considerable amount less than mine.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, are we really trying to buy the horse? Because he ain't going to do nothing.
Yeah, is he going to leave?
Yeah, I said that. I said, hey, is he going to leave? And you said, don't you worry, my friend. He will leave.
He will leave, yeah.
When you drop your hand, and I mean gates bang, and when I dropped my hand, it was like a bomb went off. And I always told people, Topper, Roy Cooper's horse, I rode him at Logandale. No, I rode him at Laughlin, Nevada one year, and I had never rode a horse like that. I mean, when my hand dropped, it was really smooth, but it felt like a bomb going off. Just, how can one in their first step go that fast? And I felt that the first calf on Pickett. And, man, I ended up winning a lot on Pickett. Good horse, did everything. Ended up a little boy down there at Cassville ended up with him. That white truck sitting over there. We did some swapping around horse and truck and loved him. We showed him some. I made the circuit finals on him one year.
I think he ended up heading on him too, right?
Yeah, we heeled. Zane Bruce took him one year. He was trying to make the NFR.
Yeah.
And he used him as a backup heel horse.
Yeah.
Could just do anything because he was so broke.
Yeah.
As long as you understood how to ride him. I let a buddy ride him over here at Wheaton at a rodeo one day, and he wasn't the first one. He couldn't turn him around the box. And he would take hand left, spur it back left cinch, and that horse would just side pass. And I mean, I watched him do it 5 or 6 times, and finally he pulled a string out of his mouth. He's like, Claire, something wrong with this horse. He won't turn around. And I'm like, yeah, you're telling him to side pass. Yeah. You're just going there and pushing sideways. And then another boy, I just had him get on him to maybe warm him up or cool him off or something at our old place. And this kid would ride around with his feet up there by their shoulders, kind of lay back. Yeah. And this horse would not take a step forward. All he'd do is back up, and he'd hit a fence, and he'd turn around, and he'd back up the other way, and he'd hit a fence, and he'd turn up. And I can remember Glenn Scott and I sitting there watching Jacob on him, just dying laughing. And Glenn won a bunch on him.
Yeah.
Glenn could really come across there and get it out of his hand.
Yeah. And you'd never get him too short.
Never.
He was like the dream horse.
Yes.
Because you could not get him. I never seen him get too short on anything.
Yes. And as my roping progressed, if there was a fault in him, and it wasn't his fault, I needed him to get tighter.
Yeah. Yep.
I can remember calling you saying, as my roping progressed, because of how fast he was, and hey, I need to be, when I'm pulling it down, he needs to be buried up.
Mm-hmm.
You said, man, that's simple.
Mm-hmm.
I'll be right there.
Mm-hmm.
You remember this?
I vaguely do.
You take him over there to my makeshift round pen, and you said, hey, you have calves loaded, you have everything. I'll show you what to do to get this horse tighter. And I'm thinking you're going to show up with this big old bridle or a wire tie down or something to slow him down. Well, we didn't need him slowed down. We needed him to stop sooner.
Yes.
You come trotting this horse back up there to me, and I promise you I'd never seen a horse drip sweat off the tips of its ears. And you said, all right, get on there and run some. And that horse to that day had never felt that good.
Yeah.
And you said, man, when one can run this much, you have to get them where they want to stop.
Yeah. And he was hot bred. I mean, he was out of that Docalina stud that was, they weren't broncs, but they were hot. And he was out of a Doc's prescription mare.
Yes.
So he was tough as a pine knot.
Yes.
I mean, he was really tough.
Yes. And tough. Like anything you wanted to train on him or reteach, number one, you had to get him tired. That may take a couple days. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny how at the time I didn't realize it, but between you and all of these horses, they're teaching me this. Mm-hmm. Now I had a talk with a good friend of mine, Coulter LaRue, today about horses not being tired. Why would I go out here? I'm riding a horse right now that wants to get chargy. And for people not knowing, a horse getting chargy, and I truly believe it was man-made at some point in his career, but we get close to a cow, the horse has been kicked and pulled on. Mm-hmm. And can really run, can really stop, was a fairly successful reiner. But we were talking about, I was loping circles the other day, and Mindy videoed it, threw it on Snapchat, and I'm trying to explain to that horse that if I touch the reins, you can come back to me. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean grab the bridle and go faster.
Right.
To me, there is no point in roping on that horse until I can walk, trot, lope, run, be in a standing position, touch the reins. And I'm not saying crank on his head.
Right.
Just touch the reins and you come back to me.
Yes.
If I do go on and try it and I don't have that first, it goes right back to what we were. You know what I mean? It does no good for me or the horse.
Right. Well, you don't have anything to offer him to help him.
Correct.
Correct. And that happens a lot in every kind of discipline. It's just not ropers. We couldn't just pick on them, but it happens in everything. You have to have a foundation. Your forward, backwards, left, and right has to be really good.
At all gates. At
all gates. And the other thing is, I know a lot of horses I've seen, the fastest they've ever ran is coming out of the box.
Yes.
Well, then you got to wonder why they get bad in the box. And
yes.
I mean, I don't care if you have to go breeze them at the racetrack or in your arena, but you need to stretch those horses and make them malleable before you put it all in a corner and ask for it real quick, because then it's not as big a deal.
Yes.
I mean, when we teach rundowns, we might have 10 gears, we'll just say, but we may be in nothing but fifth gear for a year.
Yes.
Until it turns 3, then we might touch on 6th and 7th. And then who knows, we might not ever be able to run that horse at 8 through 10, 8, 9, and 10, because he doesn't stop efficiently in those gears. So we have we can get a plus half at a 7 out of 10 in speed. But and I would imagine there's horses that if they have a real big, if you have to see them out a long ways and you really have to run them down, it's really hard for them to put it back, come back to you.
My good horse right now is the best horse I've ever rode. He is, and we're not throwing rocks at him.
Yeah.
You told me how many horses have we purchase that you have started?
There's a lot. There's a lot. I have no idea.
I don't know. But you told me at one point on one of the horses, I said, man, Jason, this is the best horse I've ever rode.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, golly, this was 8, 9, 10 years later.
Yes.
And you said, man, Clay, I completely agree with you. It probably is, but you are eventually going to get to ride horses, if you stick with it, that you will want to get off of those horses and throw rocks at the ones. And these were good horses.
Yeah.
Good horses. But not the athleticism, not the mind of the horses we're getting to ride now.
Yeah, trainability, the ability to retain, and just the athletic ability also, along with all that. And
this sounds crazy, but in a way, have some forgiveness to you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if that makes sense. But it's just crazy how horses have evolved, and if people don't, then we're stuck there.
Uh-huh.
Because, man, the one I'm riding now, we were talking about that picking up. I probably struggle on walking fresh calves on him, and it's because I don't slow my mind down. And when I see that calf out further and I drop, man, I get too close before I pick up. I roped on him today. You know, everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people think I rope on that horse all the time. Today I roped on him for the first day. I think I roped on him one day last week, and we went to the rodeos. As long as he's not doing anything wrong, man, it's go on the walker or go to the field and be legged up, work shoots on him, just stuff like that. Well, today I ran into the same thing with the horse I was loping yesterday. But I put my mind to, hey, these are slow jerseys. I'm going to see them out there a little ways. I'm not going to kick unless I need to.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the horse that I was talking about, the one yesterday, when I was talking about that, I meant like, if I pick up, you come back. Well, where that horse has struggled, and I think it goes all the way back to the reining. Somebody's either got frustrated, upset, something, and they've kicked and pulled, and they have so much horse under them, he doesn't know which one to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like my good horse today, Archie, I said, okay, do not kick unless you need to. The first one, we blow up too close. So I don't even throw my rope. I just shut him down.
Mm-hmm.
Just, hey, shut him down. The consequences, we're going to back up 3 steps. Put my hand down. We turn around, go get another one. He's smart enough and intelligent enough. It took one calf.
Mm-hmm.
From then on, I could push to him.
Mm-hmm.
Him raid off an imaginary line. Hey, I'm not going to get any closer than this. I could do whatever I want, and he just hung out there. And that's where, like, these real athletic horses getting control in the stop. Because it's real easy for us ropers to get caught up in the moment of throwing our rope.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming it probably happens in the reining or the cow horse. But, man, when you've got a cow plus a rope in your hand, stuff can get lost pretty easy.
Yeah. There's a lot going on.
Chris Dawson, and you've helped me understand it. Chris Dawson for years said him and I would talk, and he's like, man, there's just a big disconnect in the ropers with their horses. And I didn't understand what he meant for a long time. And you and I talking, him and I talking, it's kind of like I was going to do a Facebook post here the other day. We're sitting right here by the dummy. And in a disconnect, I never really understood until I started giving lessons. And that was, golly, Mindy and I have helped a bunch of kids, no kids of our own, and we've just taken kids in, helped them, whatever they needed. But the disconnect in horse and roper, I made this Facebook post the other day, and I never have posted it, but the title was, Do you rope the dummy for you? Do you rope the dummy for your horse, or do you rope it for both?
Mm-hmm.
Which one of those three is it? I've roped the dummy with NFR qualifiers, world champions, all the way down to first time ever throw a rope people.
Yes.
And 99% of people that I have roped the dummy with rope it solely for themselves. And then they wonder why it doesn't work a horseback.
It doesn't transfer.
No.
And in the beginning, I think when kids are learning and stuff, I look at it as like riding a colt. I get on a colt, 30-day colt. Well, I'm not holding them to as high of a standard. I need some wet saddle blankets, some guide over here,
yes.
Walk, trot, lope, stop, back up a little bit. I need some of that. And I feel like the kids, it's really nice for them just to handle their rope each other's legs, play their games, do all that. But then I think you come back and you work on it's like on horses, we do functionality first and work on form second.
Yes.
And I think you get functionality, they can handle the rope, they can feel their rope. They kind of know what a rope is. And then you come in, you tweak it a little bit. Then you let them go play again.
Yes.
And then you tweak it a little bit. And really, it's the same as horse training to me.
Oh, it is. I relay it on a daily basis. Is a beginner roper is no different than
a 2-year-old.
Any beginner discipline on a horse.
Yeah.
All the horses that came from you, most of them, luckily, you'd swung a rope on them.
Right.
Or you brought them around us. Some of them you hadn't.
Right.
And it took it took some time doing it. Mindy, my wife, at 38, probably 35, 38 or somewhere in there, started riding. Started wanting to rope. I mean, why wouldn't she? That's what we did. I hated it that we'd go to rodeos. She'd set up in the stands. I'd have to be down there on a horse. Man, there's no bigger joy to me of her roping. Well, it's funny listening to her. Mindy's pretty quiet, and there was a boy from Luxembourg came and stayed a month with us this past month. And you're around here, you're going to learn how to swing a rope.
Mm-hmm.
And by golly, I come out here. He has no bad habits. He is the virgin roper that we've all talked about. And you and I have talked quite a bit about virgin horses in disciplines. In 3 weeks that kid was here, and I didn't hound on him. There was a lot of times I'd come out to get ready to go to a rodeo, and he'd be out here roping the dummy, or on the back porch late at night roping the dummy. And this kid, he's from Luxembourg. Mom and dad drive Porsches. They don't have horses. It's Porsches and BMWs and Mercedes, and great kid. But in 3 weeks, it was amazing how good, because he was old enough to comprehend. His mind was mature enough. And I gave him like very basic. But Mindy told him day one, and how did you say it? Functionality over
form.
Over form. He could pick that rope up and swing it, and he could do exactly what I said. But you know what he couldn't do?
What?
Coil his rope up.
Cool.
Couldn't coil his rope up.
Yeah.
It took 2 weeks for that boy to learn how to coil his rope up. Now, he could stand out here and pull it off and keep one coil and build it, as long as my forearm and as tall as my shoulder. And he could set up there and just snap it around the calf's neck. Yeah. But he couldn't coil his rope up. Yeah. So right there's the functionality over form.
Yes.
It has to be a process. I believe it has to be a process in every part of it. Mentally a process. Winning has to be a process. Mindy told him the hardest part about beginner roping, is learn how to coil your rope up. Mm-hmm. And he kind of looked at her as, coil my rope up, there's no big deal with that. Boy, we'd look up and all of us would have all these pretty even coils. He'd look over and look like a bird nest on a bait caster. Yes. But
and that's how a lot of when we have the ranch horse clinics, you have to rope a stationary dummy, and then some of our classes you ranch rope a numbered cow. But people want to be able to do it. They love it. Number one, if it involves a cow, they're in. And the roping, no one really works with them on that. And I call that in a trail class, I call that a give me. You should have +1, +1.5 on all your roping stuff.
Yes.
You got to trot up there, you got to stop. You take your rope off your horn, and you rope it.
Yes.
And it's not even judged on if you catch or not, but that's bonus. But can your horse stand still? So many of them, the horse can't even stand still. And what they do, the biggest mistake is people say, well, how hard can it be? It's just roping. So they don't work on it, and they don't introduce their horse to it. They go in there. When it hits that plastic dummy, their horse jumps, and they entangle with the rope. I mean, there's some bad accidents. We had a bad one last year happen at a horse show. A gal went up to a log drag. She reached over. She's 80 years old. And the log drag is at one end of the pen, and the practice pen, or the arena is cut in half with cones, just cones, and everybody, 15, 20 people are warming up in the other end. Lady goes down there. The log drag's at the far end of the trail pattern. She trots up to it, stops, reaches over and gets the coils, puts them in her left hand, dallies up, takes off. When she dallied up, her horse's back end stepped left. And once she dallied, she never checked inventory behind her. As soon as that went in that horse's sheath, that horse took off. She grabbed the horn with both hands. The rope is entangled over the horn. The reins are entangled over the horn, and it runs off with her through the trail course, taking out everything. The log is landing every 10 foot in the air. And that woman is taking out the whole entire trail course. People are scattering, scared to death, because they're show people. These are not cowboys and cowgirls. These are show people. They're screaming and yelling. This horse is running off with an 80-year-old woman on it, just going wherever it wants, just dragging a log 15 foot behind it. And it's coming to the other end. They get the gates shut, and whoever made it out. Otherwise, you're stuck. And just stay out of her way. Outrun her.
Yes.
That's what it was. And it's trying to go the other horses. And so I bail off my horse, and the log comes by. I get on the log, and I've got this knife right here on my side, and I cut the rope. And then the horse just runs over and stops amongst some other horses, and the lady just kind of looks up, and everybody's like, is it over? Is it over? And they look over and says, oh, it's good. He's got it. And I was sitting in the middle of the arena holding a piece of a rope with my left hand, sitting on a log, and the knife in my right hand. But it's just, you have to take the time, because it's very dangerous. You have to take the time and not take it for granted that even though it looks easy, you have to take the safety precautions, because that right there could have ended very badly.
Yes.
And people were so spooked that afterwards, some people who do this all the time, they're like, I don't know if I want to do the log drag. I said, well, it's been this dangerous the whole time.
Yes.
Everybody just gets lucky. I've been judging horse shows and had my knife out of my pocket because someone's been on a log drag and their horse was spooking of it and trying to wind them up.
Yes.
And it can be very, 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 very dangerous for people. And that's one of the other aspects is safety in the roping.
Oh.
I've cut my 2 fingers off when I was in Arizona. That's what you get when you rope on fresh horses, and the horse ducks on you and tangles your hand into the horn.
It's gotten any more, and there's too many uncontrollable variables. That to think that we haven't put the time in, and I know for everybody it's different. I grew up without an arena until I think I was 16. I can remember no arena, and this is dangerous. I don't suggest anybody do it, but I'd take a horse down through there, and man, I'd rip his lips off, and I'd be out in the stirrup learning how to get that send from a horse, like a calf roper would. Man, and I felt like Roy Cooper, or halftime felt like Fred Whitfield at the time. I was moving so fast. And, just dangerous stuff safely. Man, I grew up, I rode a skateboard. You and I have been on the mountain snowboarding. I did all of that.
Yeah. And
this is probably, I tell people that parents don't rope or people that's frustrated, one way to explain this, it's trained, but we're riding a wild animal.
Mm-hmm.
We're chasing a wild animal, and we're thinking we're going to rope it. You really put that into perspective, it's dangerous.
We're getting one prey animal to chase another prey animal.
Yes, 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 and expecting to listen to us the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of stuff going on.
There is a lot of stuff, and then you involve the rider, the horse, the cow, and then the string,
yes,
the rope.
Yes.
And there's a lot that can go wrong.
Yes. And there's so many. It doesn't matter if it's roping calves, team roping, tripping steers, barrel racing, to the trail stuff, to the ranch horse stuff. There's so much. The people that you see being successful, or the people that make it look easy, I've gotten really big on that saying, and I don't consider anybody a loser. Mm-hmm. But that saying, I want to say amateurs or novice people do it until they can do it right. Winners, the best, do it until they can't do it wrong. Mm-hmm. I've watched over and over people step up here to rope the dummy, and they may rope it for 2 hours, and when they catch it, they're done. Mm-hmm. I can remember, and I'm not saying I'm any better, but I had the drive and the want to. If it took that 2 hours just to catch it, boy, then I wanted to do it till I couldn't miss it. Mm-hmm. And it may be 3 or 4 hours, and over and over. And I think that's a loss of, on the basics, you've taught me basics on horses, like meaning, hey, this goes here, this is what you get or what you should expect when this happens. One of the things you were out here teaching Mindy, and that's something I tell everybody, and I know it's a friend deal or whatever, not a friend deal, but we have to coincide to get you over here, us come down there. Mm-hmm. Even though our horses and our horsemanship is at the level it is, we still consider that we take lessons from you.
Yeah.
Like we do. Yeah. I don't know. Probably makes me sound like a bad friend, but
no.
When you get a phone call from me, it's a question about a horse.
Yeah.
And it's not I'm not being, what do you call people that ask questions and then go do it their way? Can you say that on here? Assholes.
Assholes.
Assholes. Don't be an asshole. I'm not an asshole. Mm-hmm. If I ask somebody a question, I legit wanna try the answer that they give me, because odds are I'm asking a person that I feel is better at me than that. Mm-hmm. And one day you were here and you and Mindy and I were riding, and you showed Mindy a drill. I don't really know what you would call it, but it's standing still, loose rein, take 1 foot off, take right foot off, add left foot.
Yeah.
The moment the horse takes any forward motion, we back up 3 steps, we wait 3 seconds, then we try it again. If a horse can't do that, I don't know that I really want to rope on them.
And tell the audience why.
Because there's multiple reasons, but for one, I feel like if that horse will do that, he's responding to me asking him something, responding in a positive way.
Yeah, which is lateral.
Lateral, yes.
Yeah, and you're deeming forward negative at that time because it is one leg, not 2 legs.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
And so when you're tracking the dummy or a cow and you need to help put him in position, if you press with that leg or bump with that leg, if there's not enough lateral in it, especially when you're running,
yes.
If there's not enough lateral, then basically he will run forward faster. And what happens then is we pull. So now we're kicking and pulling.
Yes. And train wreck.
And
to do that, we end up with we end up with the horse that if I touch, it knows one thing, and that's faster.
It does.
And that's so hard. And I'm as big at making that mistake. I really try not to be. But so I'll go out here. My good horse, I did it today before I roped. Hey, take one leg off, add one leg. Where do we go? If we go forwards, we're not ready to rope on. We're not. Our mind's not right. And even if I put it in him last time, I've got a job to do to prepare him to rope on him. No different than you've taught me put your hand down. If they take a step forward and you don't ask for it, hey, I didn't ask for a step forward. Back up 3 steps. Put my hand down. Walk off. Back up 6 steps. And just keep adding. And I'm not a real intelligent person. I'm not at all.
Well, join the club. Welcome.
I've had multiple concussions. I don't remember real well. But something simple has got me so much further in rope horses than anything.
And I think the biggest benefit of the deal you just talked about, they just run faster, and then you got to pull on them. So I think the thing that a lot of people miss right there is, so when all that happened, if you was to be able to ask the horse, which you can ask him in a way, but if he spoke English, you said, how was that experience? And he would have a negative connotation about that. Well, where's that show up at? Right back here in the box.
Yes.
Because it's going to be negative out there. He gets anxiety, and you can score 50 of them here. But if you still kick and pull on him out there, then it doesn't matter how much, because you're lying to him. Because you can score a couple, and he'll get a little better, but he'll get to where he don't believe you.
Yes.
So the better you can make it a pleasant experience out there, I think there's less things that you have to correct in the box. And I'll put it in terms like this. I've had people call me and says, what do you do for a rearing up horse? Just a riding horse. I said, well, I haven't had it happen in a while, but I assume when you pull on the reins, he doesn't back up.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say what I would do for a rearing up horse is when I lift on the reins, he thinks backwards. And when he thinks backwards, I let go. And so you don't have to fix A or B, because A is good. Yes. And I think if these horses have good experiences, it's like when they train rundowns, over a amortized long period of time, they speed those horses up for those big stops. And they'll throttle them down, shift them down, just like you do on the dummy.
Yes.
They shift them down a lot, and that horse can run fast confidently. In other words, he can liven up without tightening up.
Yes.
And then you see less of this. Not that you won't have any of it back here in the box, and I'm pointing at the box right now. You guys can't see it, but we're sitting right by the box here in his calf roping pen. But I feel like you have less to deal with. But as long as you keep lying to him out there and making it a negative experience, it's really hard to make it happen in here. And where do you win your money at?
Yes.
Right across the line. Right across the line. Getting out. If you get out too soon or too late, it's still bad. Too late, enough times, and now your horse has anxiety because you have to kick him then to try to get your shot. Too early, it's plus 10.
Yes. On that, one of the best young calf ropers in the world. We can talk about Rotel some. Rotel was a horse that Mindy and I bought from you. I believe he was a long 3-year-old. I think we bought him in the fall of his 3-year-old year. Told multiple people he was little bitty, maybe 14 hands. If he weighed 750, we were lucky.
Yeah, he was small.
And it just, you called me, and it got to the point in our relationship where if you called and said, hey, you need to buy this one, we started looking for the money. Didn't come look at the horse.
Right.
We started trying to scrape up the money to buy him. And man, when I first rode him, I'm like, golly, this feels like I rode 2-year-olds bigger than this one. And man, Rotel just, we went from musket to picket, to, I believe, Olive.
Yeah, and then several other young ones.
Several
Stoney,
other young.
or,
Stoney,
yeah, I mean,
Mindy's good mare now. Checks, yes. And then Olive and...
But this one was more special.
Yes, Rotel, about... You know, we put him on the sled, and y'all had roped on him a little bit.
Just pin rope, not out of the box.
Yes.
Pin rope and sled.
And so that was real simple, because I knew coming from you it was going to be done what I felt was the right way.
Yeah, and Wallery.
Yeah, and Wallery, yes.
Because I'm not a super athlete on this.
And not just you, but wrapped around the saddle horn.
Yeah.
I mean, because he wanted to stop.
Yeah.
His goal in life was to stop.
Yeah.
Still is.
Mm-hmm.
And so Rotel, man, I went to pin roping on him, and this horse could fly. Like, I thought Pickett could run. In the first 50 feet, if a bomb went off, this was an atomic bomb. Because, and you didn't have to kick. You just shuck the reins, and he would go find them. I can remember in that early 4-year-old year, Rotel, Cato Llewellyn, Cato's good friend of ours, came up, later on made the NFR. I was riding a horse for him, and I asked him to pin rope on Rotel, because I kind of wanted to show Rotel off. Like, they ain't everybody rode that fast of a horse.
Yeah.
And Cato's pin roping on him, and a cow turned, you know, we box them. For those of you who don't know, pin roping, we kick a calf out, and barring what a lot of people do, we trot the calf down. Like, we'll get in behind the calf until he's manageable, malleable, whatever you want to call it, where we can be within a stride of roping from that calf when we take in after him. You know, 1 horse stride, that's the furthest we want to be from him. Well, so, and we box them, no different than a cow horse person boxes them at the back, and we wear them down, and then we come in when the time's right, we come in behind. And when Cato came in behind, and Cato's, I don't know, Cato's 6 foot, 6'1", something like this, on this little, at this time, maybe 800-pound horse. And the cow turns around and faces him, and Rotel goes to the ground. Like, literally front and back cinch, standing still, touching the ground. Cato's feet in the stirrups are touching the ground. And Cato goes, "What do I do?" And I said, "Man, hold on. He's either going to go with the cow or he's going to go away from him, one of the two." Just kind of a freak athlete. And, man, roped on him off and on as a 4-year-old, 5-year-old. No, I think I actually took him the fall of his 4-year-old year to some rodeos or to some ropings. And, man, he just worked. He was one of those horses that, man, he was little, but golly, never got jerked out of it. Fast. It was literally made roping easy. And then as a 5- and 6-year-old, he was ACRA Horse of the Year. Made the ACRA finals on him numerous times. Rode him, golly. I ended up selling him when he was 9, but, man, I wanted to keep him definitely when I turned 40. When I turned 40, we had never really been to the MRCA and URAs. Well, at 40 in the MRCA and URA, you can go run 2 calves. One in the open, one in the 40 and over.
Okay.
Man, it was the first rodeo of the year. A friend of ours, a mutual friend of ours, David Walker, said that year he wanted to win the all-around. Well, guess what? Old Musket's standing there. He takes Musket, and I'm in the 40 and over 40 and open on Rotel. I get everything ready, saddle, warmed up, everything, rope on, hand David the reins. And this goes back, I still attribute it back to you. at this point, I'm 40, riding one of, I'm not going to say the fastest, but one of the fastest calf horses in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Running and stopping. Like, could be running wide open and then just be parked. And I'm about halfway second guessing myself. Hey, at 40 years old, am I going to be able to get away from this sucker? You know, I've won about everything I had went to on him. And I don't know why, because I was so excited to be in the 40 and over. And so David gets on Musket, goes to rope a calf, and Musket steps over the rope. David rope steers phenomenal. I don't really know if it was something. Anyways, Musket gets over the rope. Well, a brand new poly of mine, they cut about 6 foot off of it when they cut the rope. I come home that next day, and I think I had talked to you. I don't know for sure. I talked to you. Mindy and I had talked about it, just kind of in secretive. Nothing bad, but man, I'm 40 years old. I might be able to get away from this horse. Mm-hmm. And I took that short rope. I threw a breakaway Honda on it. And I said, okay, Rotel, you're not stopping until I say. And beyond a lot of people's belief, I truly believe, I don't believe horses see the slack. I believe it's our body that tells a horse to stop. And Rotel was the type, if you thought stop, if you thought it, something in your body was going to react and
he's
tell him
going to
stop.
back it off to the first cue you give him.
The first cue.
First thing you do different, whether you wind up
Yes.
or lean at the last second or whatever it is.
Or if you ride to the cow on your butt and then you stand up and throw, a cue is a change.
That's right.
A cue, and everybody listening, I don't care who you are, a cue is a change.
And they don't short you. They go off a cue.
They don't go off a cue. I've said it since you and I started being around one another and we started talking. I came up with a saying, our horses don't cheat us, we cheat ourselves. Because we do. You can go back every horse over time that has gotten tight. A horse in the wild chasing cows, and I've seen them out here in our field, they don't get to a certain distance from them and stop.
No.
They don't do that.
No.
It's man-made. If they can feel a fly on their back, they can feel me flex my right butt cheek.
Turn your head.
Turn my head, anything.
Yeah.
And so I said, okay, this short rope, Rotel, you son of a gun, you are not stopping until I tell you. Trevor Naylor that lives here with us was there. And I come out on a hard-running calf, first one, and I stay to the front, get to the front of the saddle, 2 or 3 swings, rope, pull my slack, but I stay in the forward position. Guess what? That sucker never even thought about slowing down.
Yep.
Instantly, right there, I recognized, hey, it's not him. It's me. It is. It's me cueing him. I started doing that once or twice a week on him, and not for him. Everybody thinks, hey, let's go kick our horses up out of their stop. It does no good if we've cued them.
That's right.
Zero good. If anything, it confuses them.
Well, it'd be like schooling a show horse in the reining pen two-handed, not one-handed. You can go two-handed, but then you got to go back one-handed.
Yes.
Because they know the difference.
Yes. And from then on, I could win. You could run a bad one in there and win at what I was going to. And they were tough. Like, I can remember showing up to a URA rodeo, and in the 40 and over, they're great calves. Well, guess what? Excuse me. There's guys that in the 40 and over were tying them in short 8. Well, guess what? I'm riding Rotel. I was tying them in mid-7.
Yeah.
And it just, because I worked at myself on that horse.
Yeah.
Meaning, if I did my job, his job, he did his job even better.
He would be consistent.
Yes.
And, a good way to put that, if you're roping, is in the field, you have to be super honest, super consistent. But in the box, you have to be the biggest liar ever.
Oh, 100%.
And so it's flip-flop.
Yes.
You have to go out there and be super consistent, But the box, it has to be, you have to lie to them. And there's so many people. I mean, I know, and you probably know who it is, but there's a team roper not far from here. I haven't seen him rope in years because I don't rope as much, but he'd walk in. He'd say, "Are you ready?" He'd say, "Yep." He'd say, "All right." And then he'd spit, and then he'd nod his head.
Yes.
Well, you couldn't spit on that horse without it taking off.
Yes.
And that's a cue.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what it is. People get in there and don't realize it, but they get very patterned. The people get very patterned.
Yes.
And then they wonder why they can't trick their horse. They'll say, "I'm going to score one." Well, the horse heard that right before they walked in. And they walk in. They say, "Well, I guess I didn't need it. He stood great." And then, I mean, you have to be a better liar in that box.
Yes.
If you want consistency.
Yes.
If you want the consistency.
And if you want to go into detail in the box, Chris Dawson helped me. Him and I were talking about the box one day, and we started, and I know I could have got it from you also. We just happened to be talking about it one day, and we break the box down into two ways. We expect, not in a mean or vicious way, but we expect horses to go in there, turn around, and back up and stand there. We do. If they don't, guess what? You're going to put your feet to work. It's not mean. We're not going to whip on them. We're not going to anything. It's just we expect that. If we score one, it's because that horse is wanting to jump off the bang of the gate. And when we started keeping those two things separate, our horses got better in the box. They did, and I know everybody has their own way, and I'm all for listening to somebody else's way. This is what works for us, or we've implemented, and it started working. But so back to Rotel.
And I wanted to interject too. So before you got him, he was pretty tough.
Oh,
and I had 60 cows at my place.
Yes.
And they were bad.
Yes.
I mean, they were really bad. We had gotten the cattle business with this new place, and we'd ended up buying a set of cattle. A cattle trader had lost his lease. And when I went to pick them up, we parked in the bottom, and they were bringing these in like they were loading the ark, only they had ropes, and it was 2 at a time. They were roping all of them, just bringing them down off the hills and putting them in the pen, and then we took them to my house. So they were really bad cows. And I took that horse over to the house. I needed to gather these cows. They were on 100 acres of wooded, and then because it's hilly down there.
Was there some briars in there?
There was some briars in there. I'll get to that, yeah. And I know you found them later. So I have Rotel, and I thought it was going to be real smooth because the cattle were up by the corrals. Well, they didn't. And we circled the 100 acres a few times, 4 hours worth, just me and him. But I was hell-bent on gathering those cattle. And at first, we would go off on one of those hollows, and it looked like something a rabbit would live in. And that Rotel, he was like, And I kicked him, and man, we were plowing through briars. We were plowing through everything, okay? And I had it down. It took me 4 hours to get them gathered because they were so naughty. They were terrible. Sour. They'd been there, done that. And I come up over an embankment, and I'd been after a Charlene or calf, 300-pound calf. And I popped up over that hill, and when I did, she was standing right there, and I didn't know she was there. And that horse was so athletic, we done a matrix move in the air at a lope, and she wasn't going to get you. If you were on Rotel, a cow would not get you.
No.
It couldn't.
No.
And matrix move, and then I got in behind her and started pushing her back, and he's kind of got his head up, and I'm like, what is the matter with him? We've rode for 4 hours, and he was 2-barreling at the first of the ride, kicking out. You know how that is.
Oh, yes.
In the Grand Entry.
Oh, yes.
But I look behind me, and there is a full tree, a sapling tree, sideways in his tail, and he's dragging it. But he was done by then, so it was good. And that was one experience with him. And then I took him elk hunting in Idaho.
Yes.
Well, we stayed in Cheyenne. That's 12 hours from where we're at right here. He pawed all the way to Cheyenne before he quit. And he didn't paw the rest of the trip. So he's a pretty tough-minded horse.
Yes.
So you got him, and I know you called me up to 6 months afterwards, and you said, there is something coming out of this horse's chest. I keep digging splinters out of him. What is this?
Yes, and it was. I even think there may have been a locust thorn in his mane that maybe 6 months. I always thought it was just a knot. You know, everything that goes in eventually got to come out, and it did.
He was tough.
Oh, tough.
But that was a turning point for him.
Yes.
That was a big turning point. He was a really tough horse. He was out of that mare that produced so many good ones. She was a Flying X6 Freckles Playboy mare. Mm-hmm. And a little gray mare that you just walk past. You wouldn't think nothing of. And there's been a lot of good horses come out of her.
Yes.
A lot of good horses.
We, Rotel was one of the proof on the horse walker. We have programs on it. And Rotel being by that, I could too. So he was a Pepto and physically tough. Mm-hmm. Like took a lot of riding, and he's the horse that proved to me that if we're going to do this with cutters, now I believe cutters have built up a stamina in their breeding that, you can tell me. I've always said that most cutters at a show will take a horse to a loping pen for an hour.
A lot of them do, yes, they do. They have to perform for 2.5 minutes, yeah.
And still at 2.5 minutes give you their life.
Yes, and not quit.
And so we're talking lope for an hour.
And lope and trot.
Yeah, lope and trot. And we're not talking out here on this gravel or in this arena. Mm-hmm. Matt Freeman let us lope horses one day, him and Mindy and I and his kids up there, they were getting ready for a cutting, and we wheeled them out there in the loping pen in the sand. Hey, I'm telling you, 10 minutes, I was wore out.
Yeah, it's a little different deal.
Knee deep. Yeah. So then we started, I kind of started implementing and understanding, Mindy and I both, that, hey, we're not doing these horses any justice. We're not getting their mind right. They're bred, they're tough, they're strong. What makes us think as a roper, if a loper's or a cutter's got to take them there for an hour and trot and lope to get their mind right? And I'm not saying all cutting horses, but if I was going to go on Rotel and think I was going to cut a cow and me take 1 foot off, add 1 foot, in the heat of the moment, blood boiling, his mind had to be spot on. Mm-hmm. So as ropers, what makes me think I can go out here and lope 10 circles?
Yeah.
And his mind's right.
And that happens a lot.
Hey, and this was, so we're talking 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've won all this on Rotel. As a 9-year-old, we sell him. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be honest with you, I was heartbroken when we sold him. The day we handed him off to Tyler Milligan, great friend of ours, great, can't say enough good things. And we sold him for more than we had ever fathomed we would get for a horse. Mm-hmm. I had tears run down my face. Was with Mindy and Tyler and Brittany Warley. And you know me, I can talk. Mm-hmm. Love to talk. I didn't talk for 10 or 12 hours. Mindy and I on the way home. I was upset about it. And Tyler started off, and man, he had good success for a while on him. And I'll never, and I got so tickled. It come time for Reno. And I told Tyler, I said, man, this horse takes a lot of riding, a lot. And he said, he calls me when he's at Reno, and he says, hey, Clay, I just rode up here. I'm not up till tomorrow. Rotel, I tied him up to the fence, and he's standing there bucking. I said, bud, you got work to do. Work to do. I think we talked about him going out there and riding his butt off, and I believe he asked. I don't know. I know I told him. I think he asked, how long will it take? And I told him, well, you know how if you ride a horse for a long time, you get them cherries on the insides of your knees? Uh-huh. When you have those, his mind's probably right.
He'll be about right, yeah.
Yes. And That horse taught me a ton.
Yeah.
It's taught me a ton about preparation.
Yeah. And in preparation, I remember that one time you still probably go over to Miami.
Yes.
And they don't have a warm up hardly.
No.
So it's a real. I mean that area is small.
Yes.
And you said I'm having trouble. You had Pickett then. You said I'm having trouble getting Pickett ready over there because I can't just lope him down if it's raining outside. There's nowhere to warm up. So how do you get his mind right? And that's back into, there's more than one way to get their mind right other than just trotting and loping. And I went with you over there.
Yes.
And I never got into a lope. I don't even know if I loped. I don't even know if I could. I think I trotted.
Yes.
Trotted, but I'd done a lot of things to get him tuned in mentally.
Yes.
And then, and that was kind of a unique way. And I think some of the calf ropers were looking at us funny.
They were. And I still, when we go to Miami, people don't understand. We prepare our horses that day before we go. Mm-hmm. We may not rope on them. Everybody thinks preparing a rope horse, and for some people it works. Mm-hmm. For me, having learned from you, preparing a horse is as simple as finding tails on them, if that makes sense to you. Mm-hmm. Archie's got a tail. Maverick's got a tail. Chex has got a tail. And meaning, if I ask you to do this, if your mind's not right, mm-hmm. are you going to do this or not? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And when I check that tail and they tell me yes or they tell me no, it's smooth sailing. If they tell me yes, if they tell me no, I've got some work to do. Mm-hmm. And it may be loping around after a rodeo at the slack, and I kick Archie up into not a full-on run, but I'm asking quite a bit of him, mm-hmm. and I pick the bridle reins up. Do you come back to me? If he doesn't, mm-hmm. we got to do something to get that before I run this calf.
And you're talking about shift down.
Shift down, yes.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yes.
Well, can you shift those horses down gears just like you can shift them up? Because some horses you can't shift up.
Yes.
They've got first, second, third, and eighth and ninth.
Yes.
And that's it.
Yes.
And then once you get that mastered, then you try to shift them down, and the horses, they might stop.
Yes.
But you can't shift them down.
Yes.
And they need all that pre-work. So if you could pick and I know this is a terrible question, okay? But if you have the most valuable player award as far as on the drills and calf, head, heel, and training, anything to do with roping, what's the number one drill that has probably most value? Not to discredit any of the others, but what drill or what part of the training has to it probably holds the most weight?
Any horse that we make now. The Chance was here. You came over to help mm-hmm. Mindy. Mm-hmm. It led into more. Just being around you, watching you ride a horse, and when you're talking riding a horse, mm-hmm. I've got where I can pick up on it. Mm-hmm. Meaning, like, you're way better at horse English than I am, mm-hmm. but I pick up on it. And I asked Chance. Rotel kind of went through a deal in the box. I think a lot of it was just confusion, different people. I messed up making Rotel. Mm-hmm. From 4 years old to 9 years old, 5 people rode him ever. Mm-hmm. Those 5 people ran one calf on him mm-hmm. apiece. Mm-hmm. I was the only one that ever rode him. He was not super friendly or malleable to other people. Mm-hmm. You had to ride him like me. Mm-hmm. I still believe to this day you have to ride him like me. Mm-hmm. He's just not real forgiving to other people because I stuck with one thing and I stayed with it the whole way through. But so Chance, we were talking about Rotel in the box and how to ride Rotel in the box. I was struggling a little bit explaining to Chance, hey, I want them when I ride in there, I want their mind more on me than that calf in the chute. I'm riding a horse right now that I can back in there, and if he has one ear on me and one ear on the chute, we're golden. And that sounds crazy to some ropers that they've taken it, that we've taken it to that extent, but that horse does. That means I'm connected with the horse is connected with me, plus the horse is connected with the cow. And when we can go through the majority of a run like that, go back and watch videos, and that horse is checking me with one ear the whole time. Hey, what are you? The control feeling, not control, the connection feeling is unbelievable. But so Chance and Rotel, you laid 2 logs out. Because to me, and I hope it does to everybody, you just said, where's the money one? Right here in the box. You laid 2 logs out. You had him side pass across them, turn front end, side pass across the other one, turn hindquarters, side pass back, turn hindquarters, side pass back, turn front end. And so we went every move you would ever need to make in the box. We had side pass, we had front end moves around, we had side pass, we had back end moves around, hindquarters move around. And that is one thing I get on every horse and try first thing. And I've sent some horses home after riding them a week or two that weren't capable of doing that, because that needs to be taught well before they're a rope horse.
Well, because and the reason that's important, if people don't understand, because you're going to have, in the box, you're going to need to help them.
Yes.
And you're going to need, you can call them buttons, cues, or just your horse being broke. It doesn't matter what you call it. But if you aren't going to get them broke in the box.
No.
You have to have all that on them before you go in there. But there's a lot of horses that can't walk a circle.
Yes.
Well, if you walk in the box, that's a lot like a circle.
Yes.
Left or right, depends on how you want to turn them. And if you can't move the hind without the forehand moving, that's going to be a problem, and vice versa. If you can't back them up outside, it's really not easy to back them up when you're backing them into a claustrophobic corner and when they know what they're fixing to do. So they're kind of stuck in passing gear, and you're asking them to go back, and that's where horses get light. That's where horses get light in the front end.
Yes.
It's not their front end, it's their back end not moving.
Yes. Yes, I 100% agree. That would be my...
The pole drill?
Yes, yeah. That would be my number one. Now, when we go from there, the next thing is a half pass. And for those of you that don't know, I didn't know what a half pass was. I called it a trotting side pass or a loping side pass. A half pass is a side pass with forward motion.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah. Yeah, you could picture it that way, yes.
And so I have all these terms for them.
Kind of like changing lanes.
Yes,
on
changing
an interstate.
lanes.
So if you're in a car, you would change lanes.
It's not a turn. It's we stay squared up with our target, but we pass over behind them.
Very valuable.
All horses need that on them to be a successful rope horse, in my opinion. They do. It's because, and they need to be able to do that not just at a walk. They need to be able to do it at a walk, a trot, a lope, and then they need to be able to do it at a run. Because guess what? The calf runs. And we need to be able to be in that kind of control, or not control. We need to have that tool available. It's where it's almost like we're building a house and you're really good at the foundation. And I've learned that your foundation matches, my framing matches your foundation. And I think it's why we've been successful on the horses that came from you.
Yeah. And you know what to expect, and you ride behind me.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
And that's worth a lot. It's like colt starting. I don't do as much of it anymore, but I've got a few people that do. Casey starts a lot of mine, Frank, and I can ride behind him, and I kind of know what to expect.
Yes.
And that's really, really handy. Really handy.
Yes, It's kind of like I was telling somebody the other day. I understand how horses used to be. I feel very, very fortunate that I grew up, not having an arena. I would go to guys in Oklahoma, not going to mention any names, but I would go to their houses, and they were calf horse trainers, or maybe they just had a bunch of calf horses. Mm-hmm. And I was fortunate enough to go there, and I can remember backing in the box and so-and-so standing in the box with a hickory stick. And that's how you kept your horse in the box. Mm-hmm. And if that horse made a wrong move, that man standing on the ground fixed the horse.
And the people weren't necessarily, when people do things like that, I don't think they're trying to be bad, but that's just all they know.
No, it was fear.
Yeah.
It was.
And that's all the people know to do. They don't really, that's the technique they were probably taught or picked up on. And they're not maliciously trying to do things that we would deem wrong or incorrect. They just, hey, here's what I know. Here's what I've seen work to an extent, and that's what I'm going to try. And that's, when I see someone struggling with a horse, I don't think they're going out there and intentionally doing the wrong thing.
Correct.
They've just kind of ran out of knowledge, and they really don't know.
Yes.
But if we'll slow down, and what I always call it, work backwards. I've mentioned that to you a lot.
Yes.
Whether you're buying a horse or you're training a horse or even anything in life, you work backwards. What would your end goal would you like it to be? And you write that down or take a picture of it or whatever it is. Then you build a pyramid under it on how to achieve it.
Yes.
And that's the best way to do it, I think.
Yes. No, I'm with you. And I truly believe, Mindy and I talk about it all the time, the caliber of horses that are available now. Mm-hmm. Used to, there wasn't, Mindy and I have gotten to be great friends with the people at the Over 40 Ranch, Mike and Tammy Jones. Golly, Nita's Woods, Brother Tough Woods. Mm-hmm. I'm riding a one-time royalty out of SDP Mom CD. Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm talking, you were here. Mm-hmm. We roped him for how long? Intelligence and unbelievable athleticism. Mm-hmm. Going back to Musket, had I not started with Musket,
yes,
I knew one way.
Yeah.
And it literally was scaring the alligator into them, rather than, hey, let's get them over this. Let's train it into them.
Get them to help you.
Yes.
Yeah. If they will help you, the whole picture looks better.
Yes. And through your help, like I'll praise you if anybody's ever been around me for very long, because Musket in 2 weeks I got frustrated.
Yeah.
I was dealing with, and let's face it, I've messed horses up.
Oh, we all have.
You've messed horses up.
Absolutely.
Musket was, whether we forget or not, Musket was a little bit on the blown up side.
Yes. Yeah.
He was. And I remember taking Musket to the rodeo and walk up there by the arena, and man, we just prance.
Yeah.
This horse is standing there. I'm tying my ropes on, and he's standing there prancing.
He's ready.
And I'm like, oh gosh, that first year, no wonder Mindy started roping, so she'd have something to do. And I would lope him around, first of all, to check him, to see if he would tell me. Mm-hmm. I would walk up to the arena, ride him up to the arena. If we started prancing, we would come back to the truck and we would lope circles around it.
Because he wanted to go back to the truck.
He wanted to go back to the truck.
Yeah.
Because I was told, hey, I didn't want to deal with that.
Yeah.
What you do is leave him tied up to the trailer till 5 minutes before you rope, and then go up there and you just don't have to deal with it longer.
Right.
And so I loped, and I don't know how much I loped that horse. And I would find things that he was scared of or didn't want to do, and I processed it into him that this is better than this. The arena is better than the trailer. Mm-hmm. And Musket, we went on, hey, world champion. Rode him, took him to the Northwest. Mm-hmm. There was 50. Last time Mindy and I counted, There was 12 NFR qualifiers that had rode musket. When we quit counting early in his career, 15 guys had won, 15 different people had won over 150,000 on him, meaning like total, all of their winnings. But had I not learned from that horse, had I started with Pickett, that you had made a lot simpler, there's no possible way I could ride the horses I do today. No, no way, because
especially the bay horse that.
Oh, the bay horse Maverick or even Archie. I can remember one time, and I hate to tell him myself, but one time Rotel riding in the box. He'd blow at the cow. He'd look over at the cow and blow at it like a deer. And finally I said, dude, I'm sick of this.
Yeah.
And I mean, I rowl out on him one way and rowl out the other, and we're probably 2 or 3 minutes of me doing that. Guess what? For 2 weeks, if I pick my leg up, I'd dang near fall off because he didn't forget.
Yeah.
And it took 2 weeks to get him over that.
I read a deal the other day that said horses are a lot like a tube of toothpaste. We can squeeze it out really easy, but it's hard to put back in there.
Very hard. Very
and
hard.
then put the lid on it.
Yes. Yes. It just...
And that's stuff that everybody's going to do. You can't be afraid of failure and never ask anything of your horse or anything like that.